Hey everybody, it's Eric from epautos.com, your libertarian car guy and your Zolshenitsyn of sickness, your dissenter from face diapering, and I'm going to do a quick walk around of this 2021 Lincoln Aviator, which is in many ways a 2/3 scale Navigator. Has 3 rows of seats, but it's not quite as big as the Navigator, and it's also not quite as SUV-ish as the Navigator, particularly as regards the height of the thing. Most SUVs, and this is a real SUV by the way, not a crossover SUV, built on a rear drive layout shared with the Ford Explorer, so it's not based on a front wheel drive type light duty car-ish platform as so many crossovers are. So I think that distinction is important. But let me get back to my incoherent rambling and talk about the height. So, you know, the roof line is not so ridiculously high that you can't even see the roof. I can actually see the roof, and look at that beautiful panorama sunroof, which when open you can surf, assuming it's not too cold. But the point is, look how much easier it is to get into this thing, which is an issue with SUVs, and that is why a lot of SUVs, including the Navigator, have those deployable running boards that kick out right here, because you gotta like pull yourself. There's usually a grab handle right here, and you gotta pull yourself into it. Whereas this has more or less the ride height of a car, or at least not much higher off the ground than a car. And in that respect, it's kind of more like a car, which is interesting because Lincoln is no longer going to be selling cars. After the end of this calendar year, a couple of weeks from now, they announced that they're going to stop selling the Continental sedan, which was the last Lincoln sedan, and henceforth they're only going to be selling SUVs and crossovers because that's what people like. And I think one of the reasons that they do like them, the footprint of this Aviator is about the same as that of the Continental. In fact, this Aviator is about 1 inch or 2 not quite as long, so not a gigantic, enormous vehicle, but it still has 3 rows of seats and seats 7, whereas in the Connie you only had 2 rows of seats and you could only seat 5. So this one takes more people, which is important. But I also think part of the reason for the popularity of this layout versus the sedan or car layout gets back to the tallness factor. Crossovers and SUVs are now pretty much everywhere. Everybody's selling them. They've been around and popular now for about 20 years, such that even if you have a nice big sedan, you know, something that in the past would have really stood out because, wow, look at that big roller going down the road, it's hard to see them now because they are so short relative to all of these crossovers and SUVs that are everywhere and kind of hogging up all the space. So people want something that's gonna, you know, not be dwarfed by all of the other SUVs and crossovers out there. So it's kind of a feedback loop in that sense. And I also think, to get back to the other point, people like to have the versatility, the additional space, the room, and all of that. But what I dig about this thing is it's not an overwhelming SUV, and I'm not an anti-SUV guy. I like SUVs. I like 4-wheel drive and all of that. But it's difficult to keep the handling good. It's difficult to keep them from being really ponderous in that platform. It's just sort of the nature of the beast. Whereas in this case, Lincoln decided to make something that was a sort of a split the difference between the jacked up traditional SUV like a Navigator and something more like a car. By the way, there's one of my chickens coming along to listen to my commentary this morning. Some other things too that are pretty interesting about this Aviator, even though nominally it's not Lincoln's top of the line model, which is the Navigator. This thing comes with one of the strongest, it comes with the strongest powertrain that you can get in any Lincoln product right now, which is the optionally available turbocharged V6 hybrid powertrain combo, which develops an astounding 630 foot-pounds of torque and 494 horsepower. And let me tell you, that's some pull. And speaking of pull too, because this thing is not based on a light-duty front-wheel drive car type layout, it actually has pretty good towing capacity. You can pull close to 7,000 pounds behind this though ironically not with the 630 foot-pound of torque hybrid drivetrain, and that probably has something to do with the fact that the weight of all of that adds about 1,000 pounds to the curb weight, pushing it up to about 5,600 pounds, so the curb weight gets reduced accordingly by almost 1,000 pounds, or not the curb weight, the tow weight, tow max rating gets dropped down to 5,600 pounds rather than 6,700, but still it pulls a decent load standard. You'll find that a lot of the vehicles in this general class, mid-size-ish, full-size-ish vehicles, including the Volkswagen Atlas and Crossport that I recently reviewed, in their standard configurations, they'll pull maybe 2,000 pounds, and some of them go up to 45 or 5. Not many pull substantially more than 5. There are a few. The Audi Q7 does. But by and large, it's difficult to find a vehicle in this class, unless it's a truck-type layout or a rear-drive layout, that can actually really pull a decent weight trailer. So this will take your boat, it'll take your pull-along camper and stuff like that, which is a nice advantage. Something else that I like about this vehicle, I think Lincoln does perhaps the best job of all of the luxury car brands in integrating some of the retro iconic things that make a Lincoln and uniquely a Lincoln, along with some of the modern themes. Let me see if I can get in here and show this to you. So you have got, for example, the iconic push-button Lincoln gear selector, and then you have the modern tablet-style LCD touchscreen, which they all have. But you have also sort of the nice, elegant, old-school Lincoln-ish. If you're somebody who knows Lincolns from the 60s and even the 70s, you'll recognize some of the shapes here and the forms. Lincoln was very into the sort of horizontal and breadboxy themes, and these are nicely rounded, and they're not garish and flashy like a lot of them are, like they really make an issue of how fancy they are. This is just a very nice, plush, comfortable, opulent vehicle. Some of the reviewers you will look and see or read, have made fun of the Aviator for being a soft riding vehicle, and I say a pox on them. I think that Lincoln did exactly the right thing by making this vehicle ride noticeably softer and noticeably more comfortably than the quote-unquote, air quotes, sporty. Everything has to be sporty these days, and I'm not opposed to sporty. I just don't think that sporty should be ubiquitous, just like I don't think everybody should be wearing the holy rag around their face either. Viva la différence, viva choice, and this is actually a real choice. It's a different vehicle for once, not just in terms of its layout, but also in terms of the way it drives and the things that it can do. So there's more up at epautos.com, the web's best libertarian gearhead site, and your oasis amid a sea of sickness cultishness. Thanks as always for listening to the rants, reading the articles, and we will catch up with you again soon.